Hey y'all, today we have a repeat guest, Omar Ruiz from NFL Network. If you watch Good Morning Football, you watch any number of shows over on their network. You've seen Omar before. Omar, tell the people about yourself for the folks who haven't listened in before or been smart enough to, or fortunate enough to be following along with what you're doing already.
Hey, what's up, Matt? Yeah, good to be with you. Thanks for having me. Week 1, we're finally here. You can catch me on NFL Now. I host that every Friday during the season. Also, NFL Game Day Final on Mondays, which is our Monday night postgame show. We have a unique guest on that show. Chase Daniel, who's the backup quarterback for the LA Chargers, is actually going to be joining us in studio to be one of the analysts for that show, along with D'Angelo Hall and Adam Rank. So we had our first show last night. It was awesome. Obviously, a thrilling game last night. To have an actual current NFL player be a regular guest is a unique perspective that you don't get that much. So tune in on Mondays. I know a lot of Philly fans will be watching on Monday night next week. So make sure you tune in to NFL Network after the game and join us and have some fun.
That's really cool. That is so in Philly on one of the new platforms that's been around for a while but really catching steam now. It's called Jacob. Lane Johnson, All Pro right tackles, doing their post game show. So it's interesting now. You're starting to see that. I guess it's kind of like the Draymond Greenization of sports media. It's interesting. They actually they're making themselves be held to like a higher standard because you've got to be newsy and honest with your critiques of other current players, but then you also have to back it up on the field and check your stuff past your team owner. I mean, it's that's fascinating. They're really
I knew he was doing it. And I was surprised he was actually on the show last night because obviously they played the Raiders on Sunday. Then they have the short turnaround on Thursday Night Football playing the Chiefs on the road this week. So I was thinking there's no way he has enough time to drive up from Orange County, which can be an hour and a half drive in rush hour to the NFL Network studios and then back and then get ready for preparations on Tuesday, Wednesday. But he did, and he did a great job in his debut and look forward to many more Mondays ahead for him.
Cheers to him. So you talked about the Monday night game. Very exciting game. I think it's one of the premier venues in the NFL. I would say Seattle. The place was roaring, and Geno Smith gets the win in Week 1 against Russell Wilson. What are some of your thoughts on that whole, how that came to be and where that leaves the Broncos and the Seahawks?
Well, you know how badly Seattle wanted that win. Not just the organization for the divorce from Russell Wilson, but the entire city. And you heard the 12s unleashing what they thought of Russell Wilson leaving, all the boos. And I just like the Geno Smith story in that, I've covered the Seahawks for years. And several times after practice, I see Geno Smith with his quarterback's coach, Dave Canales, run through the script of practice. So in other words, they would do another practice, just him and maybe low-level assistant as a receiver, and they would run through every play that Russell Wilson won during practice, but for Geno. And in talking to Geno, whether I'm talking about his relationship with Russell Wilson, maybe giving me some insight on how Russell prepares for the game and all that, Geno always talked like a franchise quarterback. He still had the delivery, the cadence, the insight. And so he's carried himself like that. He's put the work in. And what we saw last night was just that on display. And so I was very happy to see him not only win, play well. And I hope it's something that the Seahawks can sustain because, I think it's great to see Geno doing well. And, whenever you have a team that so many people had counted out going into this season, pull off a huge win like that, I think it can set the tone for what might be a surprising season for them. For the Broncos, I think they'll be okay. They had 2 fumbles at the 1, could have been 14 points. They had 12 penalties for 106 yards, and they were still a foot from winning that game if Brandon McManus's field goal is right just a little bit. So, no reason to panic for Denver, but a lot of hope for optimism now for Seattle.
Yeah, and for the folks who didn't get a chance to see the Broncos the Broncos attempted a 64-yard field goal, and as Omar said, the kicker McManus barely missed it. So in that environment, do you think that they made the right call, and you would try it again, let him, especially because he only missed it by a foot?
I keep going back and forth, and it sort of illustrates how difficult a decision it was for Nathaniel Hackett. And given that it was his first game as head coach, to be in that position, first time facing those kind of decisions, because I think common belief is that they should have called a timeout right after the 4th and 5 was set up. So they'd have about a minute left. Okay.
Yep.
Well, let's say they ultimately decide to kick the 64-yarder at the conclusion of that timeout. Okay, let's say they make it. That leaves a minute on the clock for Seattle. Ultimately, they drain the clock down, and had he made it, Denver would have been kicking off and, pinning Seattle back with a couple of seconds left. They probably win the game. There's no guarantee they get it on 4th and 5. Granted, you have Russell Wilson, who's been one of the more clutch performers in the entire NFL since he's been in the league. So I think that's what everybody's talking about today. But again, the kick being right 1 foot more than it would have been, this is all moot. But ultimately, I think you pay Russell Wilson $250 million to make that first down on 4th and 5, and maybe you put McManus in a better situation, maybe a 50-yarder instead of a 64, and win the game that way. So I think it was ultimately a bad decision to not go for it on 4th and 5. And then, I think we can argue different strategies on the clock management portion of it.
I think it could be nothing if the Broncos go out in week 2 and handle their business, and they go, 1-1, 2-1. But if you end up going 0-2, it's kind of a chilling effect when your coach makes conservative calls like that, and then they don't pan out. You kind of start looking around and wondering, is the ceiling caving in on us? Are we what am I not seeing here? Do we not believe in Russell Wilson? That's, unfortunately the Tuesday morning quarterbacking that has to go on here.
Yeah.
But it's a tough call for Hackett. Tough call.
And again, it's just the way the ball bounces, and if the kick goes through, it's a thrilling win, one they can, build the foundation of their season on, and but it went left, they lose, and people in Seattle couldn't have been happier.
So is that your biggest upset of week 1?
No, because I wasn't surprised how Seattle would play. I thought that they would be. No, I don't have them in the playoffs or anything like that, but I just think they would be a lot better, kind of knowing what I know about them, than what the outside perception would be. But I think the Giants over the Titans was the biggest upset.
Okay.
Just because the Giants and the Jets, frankly, the New York teams have been so bad the last, 5 years or so since, the Giants last went to the playoffs. And for them to go and Brian Dable's debut and to make those big decisions going forward on the 2-point conversion, and then the number 1 seed last year, the Tennessee Titans, and Derrick Henry coming back, full strength now, and to see Saquon Barkley not only balling out with 194 total yards, but to see him smiling, he's such a charismatic figure in the NFL, and tailor made for that New York spotlight, and to see him running around and going wild, celebrating. I just thought that was really neat. It was a good win for the New York Giants, and I thought, the biggest upset of the week.
Do you think that that's a sign of things to come? Are the Giants now, with the Dak Prescott injury, are they the biggest threat, I would say, to the Philadelphia Eagles to win the East?
No, because I still like Carson Wentz's ceiling a lot better than Daniel Jones's. And so I think you got a little taste of, what Carson can do, the 4 touchdowns, his receiving core seems like they're coming along. So I would say Washington would still be the biggest threat, but we'll see how consistent New York's been. I just don't buy in immediately, because like I said, they've been consistently bad, but Brian Dable, is a great guy, seems to be a good leader. Making a decision like he did on Sunday that leads to a win will only build more of that confidence in the locker room, and that you might not be able to write off the New York Giants as quickly as we have in years past.
Yes.
But that being said, I still think Washington's probably the more talented of the bunch when you step back from the Eagles as the favorite in the NFC East. The other three teams, I think Washington has a leg up right now.
Because they have legitimate, I would agree with you there, because they have legitimate threats on the outside. With Dotson, watch out for him. McLaurin, we already know who he is. They've got guys who can catch the ball, and especially with the Eagles having just gotten torched by Jared Goff, they should not, they should.
Well, I would just remind people that Washington is just a couple years removed from going to the playoffs, winning the division, led by that defense, which was very young at the time and obviously took a step back last year. But if they can regain their footing and they get some playmaking from Carson Wentz, then I think, they'll be as formidable as anybody in the NFC East outside of Philadelphia. So remains to be seen if Carson could put that together consistently, obviously. But what he showed on Sunday is, reason for promise if you're a Commanders fan.
So back to the Cowboys, do you think that they try to ride this run, however long it may be? The reports are varying. Obviously, the human body is dynamic, and the length of injury can vary. But we're talking somewhere from 4 to 8 games. Do you think that they stick with Cooper Rush for the weeks 2 through, I guess that would be 4 games?
Yeah, I think they do.
Okay,
especially when in the offseason. And Matt, I don't know if I've seen a division swing so mightily from the last game of one season to the first game of the next season, in that Dallas was, the overwhelming winners of the NFC East, by a couple games. And even though Philadelphia had, the great offseason and changed a lot of the conversation around the NFC East because of it, for the Cowboys to then let Amari Cooper go, Lyle Collins go, and really remake a lot of that talented roster because of what the Jones family is calling financial decisions heading into this year, when were evaluated as the richest franchise in sports. It just seems bad, ominous, if you're Mike McCarthy, and then this injury, obviously adds injury to insult. So I think there's plenty of reason for gloom and doom, and you have Stephen Jones calling out CeeDee Lamb, number 1 receiver. And this just, to me, my perception of it all just seems to be what we have here are the early makings of what becomes the Sean Payton sweepstakes.
Yes.
And so, I think the Cowboys thought that, okay, if Mike McCarthy can win with us, pulling back some of the, financial decisions that they did, then great. We'll add to hit, the talent in 2023 and regroup. But if he can't, then, I think, they might make a decision on his future, because of it. And obviously with Sean Payton and the way he's tied to the franchise, it just seems like that would be the decision, the way for them to go. But, a lot of football to get there. We've seen things turn on a dime quickly. Who knows what Cooper Rush, can bring. But they just looked, even when Dak got hurt, before Dak got hurt, they didn't look very good.
No, they didn't
at all. And so it just leaves a lot of questions more than answers about the Cowboys this year. But I don't think they're a contender.
And you have and he's only got 2 more years on his deal, and then he's got he's got now hanging over him. He's had numerous, now I think at least 3 seasons now, where he'll have missed significant portions of those seasons. In this offseason, if they go, 5-12 or 6-11, they go into this offseason with only 1 more year on Dak's deal. There are quarterback hungry teams that may come calling, and we might be looking at the end of, Dak. Obviously you're talking to an obvious Eagles fan here. And so I take a little too much enjoyment in this, but it's not unrealistic to talk about these things.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I would just figure Dak's there for a long while, but you're right. If, maybe one more injury after this one, and you can really start having that conversation if you're the Jones family, as much as they do love Dak and as much as he is a great leader for that team. The availability is, the greatest, factor for success in the National Football League. So it is interesting to talk about. And, the coaching dynamics, obviously, something that, Mike McCarthy came in 2020 and they were really bad after Dak got hurt. And then here we go again in 2022. It's just, a lot of bad football we've seen outside of the pretty good year they had a year ago.
Somebody that nobody would ever let go at this point in his career, Josh Allen, completely lit up the Rams on opening night. Is that a sign of things to come, or is that a combination of both the Bills being good and the Rams being bad?
No, the Bills are really good, number one, and they're going to be good all year long, and they'll be a factor all the way to the end of the AFC. And I'm still team Patrick Mahomes. You talk about the best quarterback in the NFL.
Me too.
But Josh Allen was just impressive.
Right there.
Yeah, right there. I think the difference is, if I'm evaluating both, is that the plays that Josh Allen makes with his legs, and you saw, the stiff arm on Nick Scott that kind of went viral, and I just fear that there's going to be a big hit that comes, and that's going to reduce Josh Allen's game significantly. I don't know if it would knock him out injury wise, but if he's not the threat, running the ball because he has a bad ankle or a bum knee or something like that because of those hits, and he still took a lot that Thursday. And I know the organization kind of wanted him to focus on avoiding those unnecessary hits. That's my concern, and why I would sort of evaluate Patrick Mahomes a little bit higher, because it seems like, Mahomes has been nicked up here and there in his career, but it seems like those huge collisions that Allen has been known for just don't seem to find Patrick Mahomes. But anyway, Josh Allen will be a factor. The Bills are really good. What struck me about the Rams in that game is you had Von Miller, Andrew Whitworth, OBJ. They were all there, part of the celebration, raising the banner for the Super Bowl, all huge contributors to the Super Bowl team just 8 months ago. None of them was in a Rams uniform on Thursday night. And so,
Sure.
Obviously we talked about them being all in and star making power of the Rams last year. And, but a lot of those guys aren't in the lineup now.
Right.
And so, so we saw a lot of that. What I think back to the Rams last year is, they got punched in the mouth pretty good against Tennessee in the first game that Derrick Henry wasn't there. And so you thought, okay, Rams are going to blow the Titans out without Derrick. But, Tennessee was much more physical. A 49er game last year, they got destroyed up front. And then, of course, they went in to rebound and win the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of things to clean up. They have the opportunity to do it. I think they'll be there right there in the end. If they can fortify that offensive line and give Aaron Donald help, pass rushing and all that. I think there's plenty there. They're not that bad. But and then who knows what they do at trade deadline time? Do they get up Vaughn and OBJ like they did last year? So so a lot remains to be seen. I don't think the Rams are as bad as they showed on Thursday night.
You think they figure it out with Allen Robinson as at the wide receiver position?
Yeah, they have to. I noticed a lot of that this week. You have Allen Robinson hardly got any targets. I think one outside of the last play of the game when the game was out of hand. You had Devontae Adams get, justifiably so, 17 targets, but Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow had low output games. You had Devontae Smith, there, in Philly, got a handful of targets, and obviously AJ Brown went off, and so you obviously have chemistry, the quarterback with the receiver of their choice. Obviously Carr was making a point to go to Adams, and Adams gets himself wide open. Why wouldn't you go to him? But I just did see a lot of sort of unbalanced, and maybe that's the nature of the first week, filling it out, unbalanced offenses out there, and that was one of them. So I do think they'll figure it out. I believe that all the talk about Allen Robinson this offseason was legitimate, how impressive he's been, not only on the field, but in the meeting rooms and everything. I just thought Matthew Stafford was under duress the entire night, just had the one look to Cup every time seemingly. And
Yep.
that was the reason for Allen Robinson not getting involved. But once they clean that offensive line issue up, then I think that'll allow Sean McVay to unleash, what they have in Allen Robinson.
Do you think it was the week one jitters that had the Eagles defense playing so badly, or what's that all about? Because 35 to the Lions, if you got to play Patrick Mahomes, that's trouble.
Yeah, I'm not so, I guess, critical on them. They're up big. You see that happens a lot in the NFL where, I don't know, they take the foot off the gas and or just relax just a second. I heard one of the explanations was, they thought that, Detroit would go pass happy. And so they had, maybe more pass defenses and Detroit was still running the football. And so, that opened them up a little bit to, big chunk plays on the ground. But, and I will give Detroit credit too. I think we're just so used to Detroit being awful. I don't think they're going to be as bad. And not to mention the Dan Campbell effect, how even as bad as they were from a talent perspective last year, they still played hard. All 17 games the Lions did. And I don't think that was any different. I don't know if you had a chance to see Hard Knocks, but, the way he communicates to the team, that what they talk about, the grit and the toughness, I think those are all something that the team actually absorbs and reflects in their play. I don't think the talent is there yet, but I think they're going to play hard 60 minutes. And I think that's what you saw. So I don't think, there's any reason to panic if you're the Eagles defense, but, I'd give Detroit a lot more credit than I would, think anything is, absolutely wrong with the Eagles defense at this point.
Do you think on the other side of the ball for Philly, do you think that Jalen Hurts puts this team in a position to have to re-up his contract before the week one of next season?
So this is his third year. So yeah, he'll be eligible. Wow. Yeah. It was to be a contract year since he's not a first round quarterback. That'll be huge. I think he does. I think that's a decision. I think he'll put himself where it is a difficult decision for them. I think if he makes it an easy decision, then the Eagles are probably going to the Super Bowl. I think we've talked about that before, where if Jalen Hurts becomes a superstar, then the Eagles are legit Super Bowl contenders. He didn't play in any way on Sunday that led me to believe that, he's not the guy. It's not it.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
He has plenty to build on. The fact that they put 38 points up on a tough team on the road week one, you're going to get the best shot. It
was their Super Bowl.
Yeah. And, coming off the Hard Knocks episode, they had so much attention on them, that they wanted to play their best. And so, Eagles took what might be their best shot and still came out on top. And in the NFL, you can't always say that. Just look at Green Bay and Minnesota, or Seattle and Denver last night. So, Eagles got the win. Jalen Hurts, and that running attack is just so impressive, time and time again, those 4 rushing touchdowns. I think still in today's day and age, as much as everything's pass happy and we talk about all these different weapons, if you could run the football, you can separate yourself in the NFL. And the Eagles did just that once again. And I think, with Hurts continuing to develop as a overall quarterback, I think they have a chance to be special. And you saw what his chemistry was with AJ Brown. So I think they're gonna be a fun team to watch. They're I think I'm just as high on them. And remember, we were talking about the expectations of the NFC.
Yes.
Just a point, to illustrate that point, we had at NFL.com writers and analysts pick all of the 23 of the 25 people that were polled picked Eagles to win the NFC East. And so, I think that they are loaded from a talent perspective, and obviously got things to clean up like every team does, and they have the time to do it. But I didn't see anything from the Eagles on Sunday that didn't suggest to me otherwise, that they're still definitely the favorites in the NFC East.
Oh yeah, nothing changed there, but it just Jalen Hurts. If they score 34 instead of 38, they lose that game. That's the only thing from that perspective. So a couple quick picks for week 2 here. Speaking of the Lions, they play the Commanders. Who are you taking in that one?
That game is
in
no Philly
Detroit.
plays Minnesota. I thought on Monday Night Football,
Philly plays Minnesota.
right? Week 2.
Commanders play the Lions.
Okay, so who am I picking? Minnesota or Detroit? I mean,
I'm
Minnesota.
sorry. Commanders versus the Lions.
No, Commanders versus the Lions. That's interesting. Where's that game at?
It's in Detroit.
Okay, I think Detroit gets that win. I think.
Okay.
I think what we saw from Washington is still encouraging, but I think what we saw from Detroit is encouraging, and so I think they get that win at home.
I do too. Chargers in Kansas City at Kansas City.
That's a good one. I still like we talked about, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs will be tough. I think Khalil Mack, is going to be a force, but I think no Keenan Allen. We might not see J.C. Jackson yet, for the Chargers. I think they're just a little banged up, obviously, at the beginning of the year. You don't like to see that, but I think that gives KC the slight edge being at home on a short week.
I agree, and I give him a little, even though he's a great player, more of an edge because they're going to be without Keenan Allen for this one, unfortunately. So I agree with you on that one too. Dolphins at Ravens. What about that one?
This one, I'm going to go with an upset here. I like the Dolphins. I like Mike McDaniel, kind of what he did, and showing up, going for it on 4th and 7, and then converting in a big way, and bringing Tua along, and the difference maker that Tyreek Hill is. I think they find a way to pull off that upset. I still think the Ravens will be there in the end, but just on this particular week, I think the Dolphins get them.
I agree. I think I might even go shocker Dolphins big. All of your picks. Yeah, all the picks. I'm with you on those. So which two teams should we expect? I know we're doing a lot of prognosticating. Nobody would have said Dak Prescott would have been out, just a few days ago. So all this is contingent upon health and all kinds of things. But your expectations as of today to be in the NFC Championship game.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. I'm going to pick. I think the Buccaneers will be there. I think Tom Brady, I'm not ready to put him in the Super Bowl yet, but I think he's hearing everything.
Yep.
Should have stayed retired. His wife's leaving him. He's not 100% focused. He's hearing all the BS on the outside world, and he is using that fuel just like he still uses the 6th round draft pick as part of his portfolio of motivation. So I think, the Buccaneers will be there. And then, I'm going to kind of play to my audience here. I'm going to go Eagles there in the NFC Championship game. I think the Rams will kind of, be there in the end. I think Aaron Rodgers and the Packers will be there, but I think they're just going to have a heck of a time all year long replacing Devontae Adams. But I think the Eagles have just so much talent, and they'll find a way to get the most out of it. And I think that would be a very intriguing NFC Championship game down in Tampa.
So you would say that the Bucs are going to end up with the higher seed for the playoffs, however.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Tampa. They still have so much talent on that.
Oh
team.
Yeah, they're loaded.
Granted the way they made the Cowboys look bad. Cowboys didn't do much on their own, but Tampa, still won 19-3, and
yes,
and their offense didn't look particularly impressive, and that eventually they'll figure it out with all that talent.
Oh my gosh,
Chris Godwin gets healthy and
scary.
So I think they're going to be all right. And Rashard White, the rookie running back, he looked pretty good, and Lenny Fournette, whatever program he's on, I need to get on that. It seemed like he lost 40 pounds in like 3 weeks or whatever. But he looks good again. So I think Tampa will be right there in the end. And that defense is going to come together, with Todd Bowles. So, but I just like all that talent. I like the leadership, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox. I love that they're still there, to kind of bring all these young Eagles along. And I think, in a long season, like the NFL calendar is, I think that's vitally important. And I think that'll be a key to their success.
Okay. Well, I would love to see it. I kind of have decided this year I'm going to go game by game and enjoy it. One more pick. So you got the Eagles, or do you got the Vikings on Monday Night Football?
This one is in Philly. I like Philly at home.
Okay.
To bring the noise on Monday Night Football against Minnesota.
I fear the shootout, and I don't know which side of that. I think that's what we're going to end up with, and I don't know which side my team's going to end up on. It's one of 17. I'll be pumped, but I just feel like Justin Jefferson is going to be very tough for us to deal with.
Yeah, well, and then you still have Adam Thielen there, so even if you put 3 guys on Justin Jefferson, it's going to be hard to, leave Thielen open like that. So, and Kirk Cousins looked pretty good, as much as, people like to give him, heck, yeah, for lack of a better term. He does look pretty good, and Kevin O'Connell could, maybe be the key that gets him to play the best he's ever played. And when you have a guy like Justin Jefferson who makes it look easy, that could be a scary team. But I just think Philly at home in prime time will be really good. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Lions got 35 on them. Look out what Minnesota might do. But I think at the same time, Philly, will kind of tighten up, and they got a great offense too. So shootout is the word. And I don't know if we've NFC East used to be one of the tough guy divisions, a lot of defense and running, and now just I guess like the NFL has evolved.
Yep,
a lot of offense, a lot of great quarterback playmaking ability, but yeah, it'd probably be whoever's defense is strongest in the end will come away with that one.
Well, if that's the bar, the Eagles are going to have to improve. They were by far the worst in week 1, so we will have to see. But Omar, where can people after this is up, they want to go look you up and find you? I love Omar's takes, the way he talks. Where can we follow along and show you some support?
Well, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Omar D. Ruiz, and then every Friday on NFL Now, on NFL Network, NFL Game Day Final on Monday nights after the game, and then various other shows like you mentioned on NFL Network, and we're back. We're up and at 'em. We're off and running, and here we go, week 2. Let's go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. We'll definitely have you back. Take care, Omar.
All right, Matt. You too. Appreciate you having me, man.